Alright, today we're having a look at Alice in Dreamland by S. Jessup 462. Alright, so here we're in Alice in Dreamland by S. Jessup 462. Now, some of you may have watched the stream, might remember some of this. We played through the first 4 or so stages of this creation. Crap. Played through the first 4 stages of this creation, so I do have a good feeling about how I feel about it, and to be perfectly honest, I've enjoyed it quite a lot. I enjoyed it on the stream, and I really felt like I wanted to share it with y'all. It's, well, as we can see, it's a 3D platformer in a kind of fantasy wild style environment based roughly on the image of Alice in Wonderland. Although in the stream, one of the viewers, Hive, had mentioned that it seemed very much like the old Crumbs. I can't remember the name. Alice Madness Returns? Something along those lines, one of the old computer games that I never had a chance to play, but I have seen Halloween 4545 do an LP of it, and it looks really cool. The handling is pretty slick. In fact, sometimes it is a bit over slick, and that is something to keep an eye on. That is my fault. That was my fault. That was 100% my fault. No worries. Crumbs. So it can be a bit easy to get... That's my fault. That's my fault. Disco, you can do it. You can do it. It's doable. I like the little bounce in these platforms, by the way. That was kind of a... Crumbs! It's kind of a neat effect. I wish I wasn't screwing it up so much that I could show you a little bit more. But that is one thing, and we do seem to see the standard Dreams package as far as movement here, that it can be pretty easy to overshoot things. It can be pretty easy to not be able to cut your momentum when you stop on something and end up overshooting off the edge or over jumping because it's difficult to judge how far you're going to be jumping in sometimes. And it is something I do think that the community does need to kind of kink out what movement schemes and speeds are best for what types of levels. But sometimes a quicker movement is more appropriate, and sometimes you might want to slow things down just a little bit. But I am liking this, and I have liked what I've seen of the other levels as well, although we're going to talk a little bit about some of those earlier levels and some of the faults that they had when we get to the hub. Now, are we done? Or are we still yet more to go? I hope we've got... Okay, we do have yet more to go. I'm not really sure how many stages there are in this level. One reason that we cut it short... We've got Goth Alice again! Gallus! Welcome back, Gallus! Gallus's stages do seem to have this kind of to-the-side type of platforming. Almost a 2D style. And some camera issues, and that is something that... Really, though? I guess we don't care. Hi. Is, something I think that came up in the stream and something I do kind of want to mention here is that I do think that the camera placement, particularly in these 2D type stages, is not necessarily the best, and it does force a little bit of leap of faith playing, because you can't quite see from the perspective how far away some of the later platforms are. So that's a bit of a downside. I don't know why Gallus has gotten stuck with this type of gameplay. I don't think we see this with regular Alice's stages, just Gallus's. Are we going to be okay? We are okay. Excelente. No, that was a bridge too far. And that is another point that I want to mention I think came up in the streams, is that it's hard to tell like how far you can drop before the drop will actually kill you. And that, I do think, is a problem, because it's hard to judge, like, is it okay here? Okay, I mean, we're fine here, thankfully. But you don't really know, and that's... Hello? Are you gonna... maybe? No? I do like Gallus's gloves, though. They are fancy. I hope that we've got another checkpoint coming up soon, because otherwise we're gonna lose a lot of progress. And we've only got 31 seconds, so we're going to try to get as much done here as we can, but I'm not sure how much. What? Oh, well, I mean, the checkpoint procced? Or triggered, I guess? Procced is not really the right word for it, but what direction do they want us to go in, then? Should we go this way? Do you think it's this way? It must be this way. There we go. Fool! Bound for the Lake of Fire, quite literally in this case. Ooh, I like that. I like that in the background. A lot of people... Oh, crumbs. We, gotta go back to the hub, but we'll talk about it there. See yas! And we're back. And, Alice in Dreamland by S. Jessup 462. I would say that it's a yellow square. I've got some reservations about that. It does have some issues, and it may be a little bit of your mileage may vary for some folks, but I think in the end, the issues don't pull it down enough to make it into an orange diamond, personally speaking. One thing I wanted to point out, S. Jessup, if I'm pronouncing your name wrong, by all means get in touch with me and let me know. I really would hate to do it, but it's the way my brain is parsing the way your name is written, so hopefully I am saying it right. But focusing on the positive points, as always, before we kind of move on to the more negative points, and one thing that I did appreciate is that it's a really big, beefy level. It's one of the larger levels I feel like I've played in Dreams so far. It's got 12 discrete stages, and I recorded each of those stages individually so I could find pips a little bit more easily. When I added them up, it came to around 31 minutes of playtime, and that's on the second time through. Your mileage may vary. If you're really, really good at these types of levels, it may be less. If you're not so good, it may be more. But one thing I appreciated is that the autosave feature, it works the way that you would hope that it works. If you leave a level in the middle, when you come back to play it, when you come back to continue it, it'll start you at the beginning of that stage, so you don't have to do everything all over again. So you kind of get the best of both worlds, as opposed to some LBP levels where they're really, really huge and beefy, but there's no real way to stop them in the middle, because if you do, you've got to start all the way over from the beginning. So that was cool. I appreciated that an awful lot. I love the character design of Alice and her Hot Topic shopping twin sister Gallus, and to the extent that I actually kind of wanted to use a remixed version as an avatar for the hubs here for the show, but unfortunately they've not been published individually, so I couldn't do that. But S. Jessup, if it would be okay, I'd love to use one of those character models. I think they were really cool. I like the way that when they're running and they can flat out run, they're just like pell-mell running. They don't run like an athlete. They kind of run, I feel like I would run if I ever had the need to do that. So that was cool. Environmental design as well, I liked an awful lot. There's a similarity, there's a theme to the different stages. There's enough to differentiate them that they don't feel exactly samey, but there is definitely a red thread that's kind of connecting how these stages are presented and what's going on in them. Although sometimes that environmental design, while it looked really, really cool just from a visual standpoint, that it could be a bit obstructive as a play standpoint. There's one level that there's one stage, and I didn't write it down because I'm a fool, where there's a lot of burning going on, and there's a lot of smoke effects going on, and they kind of billow up and then they dissipate a little bit. And in that area, you're actually you got to walk on some fairly narrow platforms to get to the end. Now, thankfully, it is a really short stage. It's one of the shorter stages in this collection, but the smoke does almost completely obscure your vision of where you're going, so that can be a little bit of a problem as well. Similar to the kind of the theming of the stages, I also found that the gameplay, while it is following a particular thread of slightly more fast combined with precision type platforming, that it was varied enough from stage to stage that I felt that I was doing something a little bit different in each stages. I didn't feel that it was getting repetitive. It wasn't really wearing on as the level went on, and I still felt like, okay, I want to go do the next stage, I want to do the next stage. The only reason we stopped it in the stream was just because I didn't want to devote the entire stream to just one creation. So I was glad that I kind of was able to come back and play it here for the show. I really wanted to. It struck me when I was doing the stream. So, I mean, those points are all really good, and I think S. Jessup has definitely done a good job kind of putting together these disparate elements to give us, for the most part, a relatively fun package. But as I said, there are definitely issues with this creation, and those issues may be off-putting to some players, particularly players like myself who may not be the strongest at platforming, and particularly precision style platforming as we see here. One of the issues is something that I find that comes up and has come up an awful lot with creations that I've played in Dreams so far. It seems as though we're using the basic movement package for our Alice puppet and our Gallus puppet, and that package, when it works and it's in the right type of areas, generally wide open environments where you don't really need to be very fiddly with your jumps, then it feels very fluid, it feels very smooth, but as soon as you get into areas where you do need that precision, and I find it's really difficult to stop momentum where you need to stop momentum. So if you're jumping onto smaller platforms, for example, it's really easy just to run off the edge before you can actually stop yourself from running. And also judging jump distances can be quite difficult at times, and find myself overshooting platforms or overcompensating and then undershooting the platforms instead of being able to nail them right on. Now some of that is a player issue. A player issue? It's a player issue. And players that are kind of used to already this type of movement scheme may have absolutely no trouble with this at all. There was somebody in the comments of the level who said that they actually felt that it was a little bit too easy for them. But I am looking forward to when the community kind of gets a good idea about what types of movement schemes and speeds and momentums are good for what types of creations, what types of platformers or interactive environments and things like that. Because right now, it's still very early on, of course, but right now I don't think as a community we're quite there yet, and you do seem to find this kind of overly quick control scheme quite often. So that was one issue. Kind of another issue that was related a little bit to control, but I do think is a little bit more on Jessup 462 as opposed to just Dreams in general. That drop distance and what is a safe drop distance varies greatly in some of these levels, some of these stages, sometimes within the same stage, where you've got a platform, it seems like you should be able to drop down to that platform, but when you do that, you'll die. You've crossed some hidden threshold that you're not able to see. And then others, for example, one in stage 8, where you're on this big lamppost, and you can see a little bit in the distance, and it certainly looks too far away. You can see the goal, and initially it feels like you shouldn't be able to actually jump to that goal because drop distance should kill you. And I think earlier in that level it may actually do, unless that's in a different stage that I'm thinking of. And I keep saying level and stage, and I'm so sorry, but actually you can get to that. But because these drop distances vary between levels and sometimes vary within levels, it can make it a little bit difficult to judge just how you're supposed to be progressing in a certain area. You know, is it okay to go here or is it not? So if you're doing things like a certain height is going to kill the player when they drop, it probably ought to be consistent throughout, like 2 character links or 3 character links, but always that distance instead of having it bounce back and forth all the time. So that was a bit of an issue that I found. Another issue, sometimes we talked a little bit about obstruction of view, obstruction of playfield. There's a few times in the various stages where you've got a locked-in camera and you're not able to swing that camera around, you're not able to do anything with that camera. And because of the way the platforms have been placed and because of the construction of the stages, that there are areas where you're not going to be able to see just where you're supposed to be jumping to, and you're going to need to make a leap of faith and just assume that the platform is going to be there, which is problematic because that can stop players and have them wondering, you know, what am I supposed to do here? And it really kills the pacing, it kills the flow of the level, so that is of a particular issue. Similar with those locked-in camera areas, that it can often be difficult to judge just what angle that you're moving in relation to other platforms, and what feels like it should be just a straight jump to the right or straight jump to the left, and you're actually jumping at an angle and you're going to be missing the platform. So that can be a little bit frustrating as well at times. The one other thing that kind of really stood up, and it just popped in at one stage, that there's kind of it's not exactly a new mechanic, but a new way of interacting with the environment that's introduced in stage 11. And you've got a series, it's actually not a super long area, it's not a super long section, but you've got a series of sloped platforms, and the angle is so acute that you really can't stop your momentum on those platforms. Like once you start moving on the platforms, you're sliding down. Basically, almost exactly sliding down. You're running at breakneck speed, basically. And the issue is that you need to be swinging around the camera a fair amount to tell where the next platform is that you're supposed to be going to. Now, if you're really, really good or really, really lucky, you can just kind of pan the camera as you're running. You'll nail every platform, and that'll be fine. I am not that good, and I'm not that lucky. So what I found myself doing was kind of jumping to break my momentum. You know, you jump, you slide a little bit, you jump, you slide a little bit, but you're also trying to swing the camera around at the same time. So because the camera is on the right directional stick, and you're hitting jump with, you know, your right thumb, you have to be alternating between the two, and it can be quite frustrating. And I found that particular point in this creation was almost a break point for me. I almost felt like, is it really worth pressing on for this? I did feel it was in the end, and I did kind of, you know, push it. But the two times that I was able to pass that stage 11, both of those times felt completely by luck, not because of something that I did. And for players like myself, that can raise the level of frustration. So, you know, if you have trouble with platforming with this type of style with this style of platforming, maybe take a break before stage 11, and then when you beat stage 11, take a break before going on to stage 12 to kind of bleed off the frustration a little bit. But, you know, all in all, I really enjoyed the whole game. I loved the environment, I loved the character. Music was great. And it was no surprise to me to see Hypertronic's name pop up in the full credits. Hypertronic has provided the music for the hub here, as we mentioned a couple episodes ago. Kind of amusingly enough, and I wish I could play this for you, but unfortunately I haven't set up the logic in the hub yet to allow me to just toggle on and off music in a way that I want. But in the final stage, stage 12, suddenly you've got the Beverly Hills Cop theme song, like in full synthesizer glory. It's beautiful. It's absolutely wonderful. It's of course doesn't really fit, you know, the type of level or the type of, I guess, semi-story that's being told with this environment, but still, it was such an unexpected bit, and I just loved it to death. So that was cool. The music in this is great, and the whole thing is an awful lot of fun. So, you know, definitely give it a look. Take your time with it if you need. You know, take breaks. There's no reason to have to do the entire, you know, 30 minutes or however long it takes you to complete the level all in one sitting. It was just necessary for me because I'm doing it for recordings, where I was doing it earlier on stream. SJSF462, I had a great time. I absolutely did. I hope someday that you feel that you'll release the Alice and Gallus puppets as remixable bits, but if you don't, that's your choice. They're your creations, as far as I know. And everybody, give this one a look. There is another level, Alice in Dream World, another creation, Alice in Dream World, that unfortunately I don't have the time to get to right now, but probably will take a look at least some of that on a future stream when we do Dreams again. But yeah, I had a good time with this one. Give it a shot. So, from me, Risco, here in Osaka, to all of you out there, wherever you may happen to be, thank you. Arigato, arigato, sayonara, see you, and ciao.